Welcome to the Eclectic Thrifter and Crafter, where we thrift and craft with purpose. Today, we're out in the garden. Grab a cup of coffee or pour yourself a cup of tea and let's see what I've been up to this week, in between having laryngitis. I soaked the corn last night, and sometime today it's going to get planted, as well as the geraniums. And I had to clean out the beehives because it was a very cold winter, so we have to rebatch. And this is a beehive that was given to me last year, so I'm going to paint it and get it ready in case they have any bees that somebody did not pick up. This is the shed that my husband put up so I can get all the dusty bits out of the garage. He likes a nice dust-free garage. And that'll work just fine. We cleaned out the greenhouse. This greenhouse has come in very handy. It is not good in areas where you have a lot of wind. We purchased it with a coupon at Harbor Freight. And it is done very well really for 10 years, but I would not recommend it in an area where you have high winds. This is repurposed wood that's going to be bird houses eventually one day this summer. And as you can see, I have a handful ready for teapots in there. With the leftover gravel, my husband made a little driveway for my three-wheel bicycle, so that's out of the garage. Made a lot of room. There's my potting bench. I have to tidy that area up real soon. And the bee yard is being tidied up. The new batch of bees will be here next week. I trimmed the roses, and today I'm going to repair the fountain right there. We didn't cover it up in time, so I have a repair to make. I'm using Simple Set, and it's really wonderful. I recommend keeping it around your house when it really comes in handy. There's the repair, and I'm going to let it slow dry in the garage for several days before I put it on the fountain. And there's the bee yard being cleaned up. Back there, that's where the corn and sunflowers are going to be planted this year. And there's the little buzzy bee that my son made in 4th grade, and we did a repair on him in a video last year. I forgot to empty my flower pots last year before the winter came, so we'll get that taken care of next week when I start weeding. We'll see if they're intact. My little cottages, I have to put sod on them this year. I keep forgetting to do that, but this year I'll put sod roofing on them. All that snow on the mountain ivy needs to come out of the garden. The bleeding hearts are really taking off. This wonderful bench I found at the thrift store for $5. They can be expensive at the regular store, but they come in very handy. We still have to clean up the hops off of the trellis, but they are starting to come out. You cut those back every year. They come up from the bottom. And that hops plant came from a plant that's almost 100 years old. Nearly everything in my garden, but for the roses, is all reclaimed. Much of it came from a garden in the next town over. A man was pulling up his grandmother's garden. He inherited the property and pulled everything up to park his boat. So I went over, and it took me 3 days to gather everything that I could before it went to the dump. So we're ready to plant seeds. I'm going to plant tomatoes in the second box and marrows in the bottom box there. There's my allium. Lavender always looks so scraggly at the beginning of the season, but don't worry and give it a chance to green out. Amazingly enough, the 9 goldfish wintered over very nicely. I have to clean out the pond next week and give it a good scrubbing, but there are 9 big goldfish in that pond. That extra basalt I'm going to use to reline the fire pit. There's a little herb garden. I'll gather up all that allium and put it in one spot. It has gone to seed, so that's kind of nice. It's a beautiful purple. I'll put it somewhere around there. It's part of the onion family. And this is generally where I add tomatoes and marrows. I have hollyhocks along the fence. They're one of my favorite flowers. Here's the rhubarb. I started most of this rhubarb by seed actually about 9 years ago. It always does very well. And I always plant some sort of marrow up here as well. Along the other side of the fence, you'll notice peonies starting to come up. All of those peonies were gathered from that garden in the next town over. He pulled everything out except for one bunch, and I brought home bags and bags of peonies and irises. I ended up giving about 3 apple boxes of iris roots away. So most of this garden is all reclaimed. And this is a trumpeter vine. I'm going to try and add 2 more this year to go up the tree. It's a beautiful orange. That one doesn't look like it's doing particularly well. And that's it for the garden, really. You can see I've cut back the roses. It was a very hard winter. There were a lot of canes that needed to be removed. But there's a lot of growth coming up from the roots, which that is very nice. My husband had to repair the cement wall behind the rose garden because it was tipping over from the moisture, and it turned out better the second time around than it did the first time around. There's the Bergenia and a nice big pine cone. I transplanted my hollyhocks, so my old-fashioned garden is going to come up very nice this year. I'm very excited to see the hollyhocks bloom. They're all double hollyhocks, and I started them from seed 2 years ago. And that's it for the garden. Just doing a lot of touch-up. And here are the violets. I just love them. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Please like and subscribe. Share my thrifting and crafting channel with your thrifting and crafting friends, and help me to reach 1,000 subscribers. I welcome your thoughts and ideas in the comments below. Check us out on Instagram and tap that notification button for upcoming announcements of thrifts and crafts. But most of all, have a lovely, lovely day.